friends, market participants, and enthusiasts right around the world. Thanks a lot for joining me on this Tuesday afternoon market recap. We still have approximately 45 minutes left of trade in today's session. However, what I can do is recap what, of course, has happened already. It has been an overwhelmingly bullish day. We are seeing, again, all three of the US markets continue to push and boost above all of our entry points on the SPY, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the NASDAQ. What is most important right now when I look at the three markets is that of the S&P 500. The reason for that is because we have had this little gap over here, which has dated us back to about the midpoint of March. Today, in fact, as at Tuesday, we've rallied back on up, and at the high of today's session, up approximately 32, 33 points at the print. That is what is allowing this little upper wick on today's candlestick. Again, this is still under construction, is that we are starting to see a little bit of selling pressure, at least short-term resistance at this horizontal area, which is essentially the closure of this gap. So moving forward, although the momentum, of course, is still to the upside, and we are making tremendous returns on those SPYs, the diamonds if you're holding them, or even the Qs, you want to, of course, be cognizant of the fact that we may see a little bit of short-term selling pressure, and we're going to have to keep our eyes on this pivot because, again, essentially what is happening is that we're at the midpoint of the channel, the midpoint of the channel really between support down here at 2,600 on the S&P 500 and all the way up here, which is coming in just shy of 2,870. So you can see if I can just draw this and color coordinate this. We are essentially right smack bang 50% in the middle of this range-bound sideways channel that we've been really nicely trading over the past number of months. What I'll quickly do for you also is recap some of our top 12 individual trade lists, understanding, of course, that we are moving towards earnings. But today, Apple got a very positive pop, up $2.70. Again, we still have about 45 minutes of trade, but this is a very nice long day Morobozu under construction. This is really nice. So again, if you're holding these positions from 175.38, this took us back to Friday last week. You're sitting very pretty at the moment, and I'm very happy for that. Amazon, again, has just come up, and it has definitively closed this open window. This was after, of course, the waterfall sell-off in the month of March that Amazon went through. We are still stabilizing and bouncing off from, if I can bring it up, that rising 100 simple moving average. And again, much like the markets and a lot of other individual companies, you can see that a lot of these oscillators are now really starting to get moving. You can see that we are starting to see some strong acceleration back up towards the overbought settings. We've still got a long way to run, but what is very nice to note is that the MACD is also confirming the most recent moves in momentum, which is very favorable as well moving forward. Boeing Airlines today did get a little pop to the upside. Again, we're chasing this, so to speak, into earnings. We tagged that 339 area again, so that was your opportunity to potentially leg out of positions that you may be holding in Boeing Airlines. The first entry was 331. So again, this is a profitable trade here, but we do have earnings. This is scheduled, so to speak. Now, let me just hover my mouse over this. Scheduled for the 25th, which is next Wednesday. So again, you have to think about this moving forward. It would be fantastic if you could hold Boeing Airlines longer term, but earnings is going to prohibit that. We've got Baidu again popping above that 230 entry, up $6.33. A very decent move today. Caterpillar is still running as well. I mean, we're all the way up here at 154.14, up $2 as I speak at the moment. Looks as though we've broken out of this downward sloping resistance area. We have started or began entering into positions as low as 146. That's almost really $10 of intrinsic value on Caterpillar in a very short space of time. Some tremendous returns. Again, this would be a trade that I'd want to hold sort of longer term. However, we still have that earnings scheduled very closely in the near future. COP is still accelerating away. This has been absolutely phenomenal, hasn't it? Let me move up the trigger now, or at least the stop to 65.35. The breakout was 61.63. So that's doing tremendously well as well. We've got CVX up another 93 cents. Three entries, 113.54, 116.15, and then of course 118.50. So this just continues to rise and rise and rise. It's really giving us or showing no signals of slowing down at this current juncture. We've got Google also, which popped today. As at the recording, it's up $36 above that 1,050 entry. I was a little bit disappointed heading into, I guess, this week's worth of trade, especially Google, because it was a fantastic stock, and we weren't 100% sure whether or not we were going to see the pop above this pivot, but that is exactly what has occurred today. We do have a little gap, however, so there might be a little bit of weakness after this. This is a tremendous opportunity just to liquidate this trade and to close that out for some pretty decent profit as well. You've got Goldman Sachs, which is reported. You can see the response to Goldman Sachs reporting. However, we're still at the midpoint of this channel. So again, going back to that discussion with the S&P 500, Goldman Sachs is very, very similar in terms of the nature, I guess the environment of its trading patterns. We are still essentially moving sideways. We're not breaking above the highs, nor are we breaking down below the lows. We do have that of an engulfing candlestick. It's really the second engulfing candlestick in the space of about 1 week. So this tends, or at least sort of points us in the direction that we are at a minimum going to come back to 246 unless we see a major reversal come tomorrow's session being Friday. So pay attention to this, not a major or not an immediate trade setup at the moment. We'll see what happens if we, first of all, break above the pivot up here, just shy of 264, or whether or not we see support down here at 246. That is going to be a trade moving forward, but at the moment, you really can't do all that much with Goldman Sachs because of where it is placed on the chart. We've got IBM also breaking out today, up another $4.03, getting above this downward sloping resistance area, very similar to what we saw on Caterpillar and also the Dow Jones Industrial Average. You can see how these are more or less working in conjunction with one another. A fantastic trade, 155.30. You may have actually exited out of this either on Monday or Tuesday or even Friday. Friday or Monday, pardon me, let me just get my days right. Today we saw a major pop. This is on the back of earnings. We're coming back up to this resistance area. We're going to have to rebracket this trade, but at the moment I'd simply let it be. There's not a real great structure behind it. However, the momentum is still firmly to the upside. That hasn't changed as at Tuesday. We've got Netflix as well, a nice gap up, $27. We're coming up to tag this 335 pivot. Now, what we do after these types of earnings events is that we reset the trade once the end of session candlestick is closed. So we'll monitor this right through to the close. If we see it more or less closing where we are, you can simply move the trigger to the high of the wick moving forward. And this is going to become that of a breakout trigger. We've got some pretty decent volume holding up Netflix. Everything is looking pretty decent behind this trade. We've got the CCI above 100. The ADX is turning up as well. We are back up into the top Bollinger Band. So again, if you wanted to wait potentially 1 or 2 sessions to see whether or not we get some decent resistance around this 330 pivot, I don't blame you. However, this is looking very, very healthy. We do have a gap continuation. Generally, we would see this gap fill and then we play the bounce off from the gap. But as it stands, this is very, very nice. This is signaling that of a continuation, not only for Netflix, but also tech as a whole in the NASDAQ, as we're seeing some very nice gains, so to speak, made really collectively and across the board when we look at the NASDAQ and also individual companies. We've got Tesla, which is pulling back. Not really a surprise there. The magnitude of resistance and selling pressure up here at 300 is really overwhelming at this particular point, and it's going to take a little bit more time until we can really get convinced with either a bullish or a bearish trade. At the moment, I would simply leave it. Now, there's not really all that much activity in gold or silver. Gold is still treading water, moving sideways, and SLV, so to speak, if I can bring up the right chart, is still moving sideways. They're still below the breakout triggers. They're still above the breakdown triggers. And this is because, again, surprise, surprise, the US dollar is just continuing to do absolutely nothing. So this is a countdown, so to speak, until that trade triggers. However, right now, we don't have enough information to place directional trades on the dollar, on gold, or on silver. So again, this is the time to be celebrating and congratulating yourself for taking positions off from the support area. We've spoken about this for a very long time. And this is the time, of course, where you really start to make some decent profits, or at least those profits really begin to snowball. And you have the joy, at least, or the pleasure of choosing to close these out when you see fit. But just to sort of bring this back full circle, as we near the close on Tuesday, you have to understand that we are coming back up to close gaps. I know that we have higher gaps. It's just a matter of, well, are we going to see a first little wave of selling pressure to take us back down to retest support potentially? Or are we simply just going to blow on above it and just continue back up to these upper resistance areas? Time will tell, but that's the benefit, of course, by entering in at the right locations on the chart. And then, of course, you can roll out of some positions and hold the remaining as we move further into the month of April and most likely into May as well. So on that note, everyone, I'm going to say goodbye to you as at Tuesday. If you have any questions, please email me, success@pivotpoint-trading.com. I wish you a fantastic Tuesday night. I'll be back with you later in the week for some more market addresses. Farewell. Goodbye.